Now we are going to look at how to use the algorithm or the rule to multiply decimals. So I went ahead and wrote down two main steps. The first step is to just multiply as you would with whole numbers. So you don't need to worry about lining up your decimal points or your place values. You just line your numbers up vertically and then just multiply like you would with whole numbers, ignoring that decimal point at first. Then we're going to add the number of decimal places in the factors and place that many in the product. So you can write those steps down, pause the video if you need to, and then we're going to work through a couple of examples here together. Okay, so I'll do a few examples over here to the side. So I'm going to use 3 91 hundredths. I'm going to multiply that by 6. So I'm going to start by just multiplying by a whole number. So notice I didn't line up my place values. That's okay with multiplying decimals for now. So I'm just going to multiply like there's no decimal point, 6 times 1. And then 9 times 6, so I'm going to get 54. Carry that over. 6 times 3 is 18, and then I add the 5 to get 23. Now from here, we have to figure out how many decimal places to put in our product. So 3 91 hundredths has two what we call decimal places. There's 2 place values after your decimal point. So that's how many need to go in your product. So 1, 2, then place your decimal point. 23 and 46 hundredths. Okay, let's try another one. 4 and 8 hundredths. Let's multiply that by 7 and 2 tenths. Or I'm sorry, 4 and 8 tenths times 7 and 2 tenths. Okay, so I'm just going to multiply like I do with whole numbers. 8 times 2, that's 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 1 is 9. Cross out that 1. Place my 0 here just like I would with whole numbers and move on to the next place value. So 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 4 is 28, and then I add the 5 to get 33. Go ahead and add those together. So I have 6 plus 0, 9 plus 6, carry my 1, 3 plus 1, and then bring down the 3. So now, again, we have to figure out where to put our decimal point. So we can't forget to go back and do that. So if I look up here, this number has 1 decimal place. This number has 1 decimal place. So now going down here, that means I have 1 and 1. My product this time is going to have 2 decimal places because I'm adding those together. So there's 1, 2, place my decimal point. Okay, let's try one more over here. So let's go 3 and 1/10. We're going to multiply that by 5 hundredths. So 5 hundredths looks like this. Okay. So I'm going to do 5 times 1, and then 5 times 3 is 15. From here, I don't have to put a 0 and keep multiplying because if I move on, I have 0 times 1, 0 times 3. So I can actually skip that step because I know they're all going to be zeros. But I do have to go back now and put in my decimal point. So here I have 1 decimal place. Here I have 2 decimal places. So that means my product is going to have 3 decimal places if I add those together. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, then put my decimal point. All right. Now, sometimes we can use mental math if we're multiplying by what's called a power of 10. So in this case, it says, how high is a stack of dimes? Well, here is my dime. This picture up here, we can see it's 1 35 hundredths millimeters. We want to know how many 100 dimes, how high that is. So 100 is what we call a power of 10. Power of 10. So we want to take 1 35/100 and multiply it by 100. So when we're multiplying by a power of 10, we can just look at the number of zeros and just move our decimal point. You could still set this up and multiply, but this is kind of a shortcut for you. So in this case, I have 2 zeros in 100. So we're going to just move our decimal point 2 places to the right. Since I'm multiplying, I want my number to get bigger. And if I move my decimal point to the right, it's going to get bigger. Okay, the number itself is going to get bigger. When we divide, we'll talk tomorrow how when we're dividing, we're going to move our decimal point a different way. So if I move my decimal point here, I now have 135. So a stack of 100 dimes would be 135 millimeters. All right, now we're going to apply what we know about order of operations. So we're trying to find the value of 2 44/100 times the quantity 4 5/10 minus 3 175 thousandths. So we're actually going to apply what we know about PEMDAS. So the first thing we need to do is what we see in parentheses here. So I need to go ahead and I'm going to rewrite my problem here. And I am going to go ahead and do the subtraction first. So I'm going to just come over here to the side and I'm going to subtract the 4 5/10 minus 3 175 thousandths. Then I'll multiply it by the 2 44/100. So we're not going to use that yet. Let's do our subtraction first. So 10 minus 5. I regrouped here, so that was 9 minus 7. And 4 minus 1. 4 minus 3. So we come up with 1 325 thousandths. So now we have 244 times 1 325 thousandths. So now I'm going to bring that number over here and multiply by the 2 44/100. Alright, so I have 5 times 4, there's 20. 4 times 2 is 8, add the 2 to get 10. 4 times 3 is 12, and then I'm adding that 1 to get 13. 4 times 1 is 4, add the 1 to get 5. Now I'm going to move on to the next place value, so I'm going to add a 0 here. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8, add the 2 again to get 10. 4 times 3 is 12, and again add the 1 to get 13. 4 times 1 is 4, add the 1 to get 5. Now I'm going to add 2 zeros to move on to my next place value. And I'm multiplying by the 2. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4, add the 1 to get the 5. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. Alright, so if I add these together, so we have a pretty large number here. We need to remember to go back and put in our decimal places. So here we have 3 decimal places, and here we have 2 decimal places. So we need to have 5 decimal places total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do count the zeros. If you have zeros in there, you still count those. So I now have 3 233 thousandths. You can take off those 2 zeros at the end if you want to. They don't have to stay on there. All right, go ahead and pause the video and try the 2 on the back. Try those on your own, and then you can unpause to check your work. So on the first one, I multiplied first because I had addition and multiplication. So I did the 8 and 2/10 times 1 and 9/10. That's where I got the 15 and 58 hundredths. Then I added that to the 12 and 67 hundredths and ended up with my final answer here. On the second one, I had to do what was in parentheses first. So I did 1 and 8/10 times 7 and 5/10 first. And I got the 13 and 5/10 and multiplied that by 6 and 4/10. And that's where I ended up with the 86 and 4/10. All right, last one here, we're going to do a word problem together. So in this problem, we buy 2 7/75 pounds of tomatoes. Okay, here's my tomatoes over here. They're $1.89 a pound. And then we're going to pay with a $10 bill. We're going to figure out how much change we will receive. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what is the cost of the tomatoes based on how much it costs per pound and how many pounds we bought. So if it's $1.89 a pound, I'm going to start with $1.89. And we're buying 2 7/75 pounds. So I'm going to multiply these two. All right, and here is what we got when we multiplied those two together. We do need to figure out now where to put our decimal points. So we have 2 decimal places here, 2 decimal places here, so that's 4 total. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go down here and count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my decimal point. Now, we're working with money here, so we want to round to the nearest hundredths place, just like if we were looking at coins. So I have $5, and then I want to figure out, is this going to be closer to 19 cents or 20 cents? Well, I have a 7 next to it, so I'm going to round it up to 20 cents. So the tomatoes cost $5.20. The question, though, is asking us how much change will you receive? We paid with a $10 bill, so take your $10 and then subtract your $5.20. 0 minus 0, I'm going to carry here. 10 minus 2, 9 minus 5. So this means you will receive $4.80.